Back when I was single and used some online dating pages, I had a few dates that were probably in the category of awful and painful, but only one that was really creepy. There was one time that I had matched with a girl named Cindy, and we talked for a bit, and we hit it off, the basic start to a good thing when it comes to dating. After chatting it up, we decided that we would meet for dinner the next night. We meet up, and she's exactly as she was in the pictures, and she was incredibly friendly. We had a quick conversation outside the restaurant and went in to get our food. The dinner started out as perfect as it could have. About 20 minutes in, after we had gotten our drinks and put in our food order, I noticed that there was a woman sitting at a table a few spots down that was glaring at me. At first, I thought maybe she was staring at something behind me, but I was at the wall, and there was nothing to stare at. I mentioned it to Cindy. I said, "Hey, there's a woman that's sitting behind you that is staring daggers at me right now." She put her hands over her face and said, "Oh God, blonde, long hair, glasses." While this was a vague description, it was exact. This woman was blonde, had long hair, and thick glasses on her face. I told her she was right and asked if she had knew her. Come to find out, this woman that was murdering me with her eyes was Cindy's ex-girlfriend. I had no problem that Cindy was for both teams. What I had a problem with was the fact that this woman was going to legit murder me at a moment's notice. I asked if I should be concerned, and she said probably not, which was not at all convincing. After a few moments, our waiter brings over our food, we thank him, and he walks away. No more than 45 seconds later, Cindy's ex stands up and walks over to our table. "Hey Cindy, leave me alone, please." At this point, I could tell that Cindy and this woman did not break up on good terms. Cindy's face was visibly red, and I could tell that she was having a bit of a panic attack. "Please, just go away. I don't like this one," the other woman said, before she grabbed my drink off the table and practically heaved it at me. She then said, "See you around," to Cindy, and looked over at me and said, "You should watch your back," and walked away. Like that wasn't the most terrifying thing that she could have said to me. So there I was, soda covering my food, my shirt, and my pants, and the look on my face was probably one of complete and total shock. Thankfully, the waiter had actually seen what had happened, so he rushed over and told me that he would get the manager, and he would get the food taken care of. I wasn't really concerned about the burger. I was more so worried about Cindy and maybe a little bit for myself. By this point, Cindy was actually in tears. I asked her what was up with that woman and if she was in any actual danger. Honestly, just trying to gauge the situation and figure out if I needed to call the cops. She then proceeds to tell me that Amanda, the ex, was pretty much a stalker at this point. She had followed Cindy around on each date that she had, ruined her relationships, and even literally stabbed her last boyfriend. She said it was only in his hand and that he was completely alive and fine, but that he had broken up with her right after that. She said that every time she thought Amanda would be gone for good, she would appear the minute Cindy tried to move on. The worst part? This had been going on for 2 full years at this point. She said that she had filed a restraining order, contacted the police, and nothing was being done about it. She said that for some reason the authorities were taking it lightly and they weren't really doing much to keep Amanda away. She told me that the stabbing incident had happened over 3 months ago, and that she had waited this long to see if maybe it would work to get rid of Amanda. Well, it didn't. Amanda was very much there and very angry. At the end of our date, after we had finished our dinner and talked a bit more about Amanda, Cindy told me that it was best that we didn't see each other again. She apologized and said that if Amanda ever disappeared entirely, she would give me a call and maybe we could try again. I agreed, and we went our separate ways. On the way home, I called my brother to tell him what had happened, and honestly, he laughed at me. He then told me that I was being played, and that Cindy was just trying to get free food, and that Amanda was her wing woman. I started to believe him, and was actually a bit upset that I had fallen for it and that they were such good actors. That is, until the next morning. I got up, I got my coffee, and then I went to take my dog for a walk, when I saw the end result of Amanda's anger. My windshield was smashed, and all 4 of my tires had been slashed. On top of that, the phrase, "she's mine," was spray painted on the hood. Obviously, I called the police, got the report, and made my insurance claim. Thankfully, I had good coverage. I also sent pictures to my brother and asked if he thought I was still being played. In the end, I never spoke to Cindy again, and I didn't message her to tell her about the damage to my car. I told the police about the night before, but they didn't really seem interested. Every now and then, I start to think about Cindy, and I wonder if she's out there, if she's doing okay. I really do worry that Amanda may lose her mind and attack her one day. I guess my final thought to Amanda, the absolute psychotic ex-girlfriend of Cindy, I hope that you and I never meet again. This may not be a story that would be considered a horror story, but it's one of those stories that makes it clear you shouldn't go on dates with people you don't know too well, or at least ask better questions about the person you plan on going on a date with. This happened back when I was on a stint with dating apps, and there were a handful of guys that I matched with, but I was also a bit picky with who I selected. There was one guy, we'll call him Chris, that I saw in the app that I thought would be a really good candidate. He was fairly attractive, around my age, and his bio talked about how he was an entrepreneur, and that he was always working on his next business venture. Maybe I had a thing for the business type, I don't know, but I matched him, he matched with me, and we were good to go from there. We chatted for a while on the app. I told him about who I was and what I did, and about how I was attending night classes to become a nurse. And he told me about who he was. Kind of. I asked him about his business ventures, and he avoided the question entirely, which to me was a bit sketchy, but I also thought that maybe he wanted to make sure I wasn't just trying to get with him for his money. I know, kind of stupid. It would have made more sense for me to think he was into drugs or other shady activities. Anyways, we talked for a bit and decided that we would get together at a steakhouse in town. It was actually his suggestion, and he was almost insistent that we go to a specific steakhouse because he loved their prime rib. This guy was talking to me about getting prime rib at a steakhouse for a first date. So, yes, I was a bit excited about seeing this through. Since first impressions are everything, I dressed up a little nicer than normal, spent a lot of time making myself look presentable, and really gave it my all. Again, steakhouse, for a first date. I get there, and I'm sitting in the lobby area waiting for him to arrive. And when he does not look at all like I had anticipated. He was clearly a few pounds heavier than his picture. His hair was longer, his facial hair was unkempt, and he looked like he hadn't showered in a few days. On top of that, his clothes were fairly loose-fitting and stained. I was a fair bit taken aback by his appearance, but in the end, was still wanting to go forward with this date. Our conversations were decent, and appearance isn't everything. Maybe he had just had a really stressful week. We get to the table, and when the waiter comes to take our drink orders, he asks him to bring back 2 baskets of the free bread. He is insistent that we need 2 baskets. When they come to the table, this man grabs the small loaf and starts tearing into it, like he hadn't eaten in a few days. Fast forward to the actual meal, and he orders the prime rib, as he said he would. I ordered the chicken parmesan because it sounded awesome. After that, while we were waiting, I started wanting to talk to him and get to know him a little more. So, I asked what kind of business venture he was currently working with. He laughed at my question and told me not to worry about it. Again, red flag. He then starts talking to me about nursing school and asks about how much it's going to cost me. This was a strange question, but I told him how much I was paying to get my license. He then proceeds to tell me that I needed to quit nursing school and then take all the money I was spending on it and put it into Bitcoin. Now, I know that currently Bitcoin would be a good investment had I gotten in way back. But this was in December of 2017, when it was peaking. This man was telling me to drop my career aspirations and invest all of my money into it when it was like 15,000. Had I done so, I would have lost everything when it tanked only a month later. He then continues to tell me that he had put all of his life savings into it a week prior, and that he was going to be a millionaire because of it. Suddenly, the night kind of made sense. He had pushed all the money he had into Bitcoin, and he meant all of his money. He was broke, and he was using the dating apps to find other targets to get them to invest and possibly get a free meal. This last part became apparent when he asked me if I could pay for it because he had forgotten his wallet. At the end of the meal, he asked the waiter for 2 boxes and an extra loaf of the bread. He crammed all of his leftovers into one box with what was left on the table, and then filled the other box with my leftovers and the extra bread. I almost felt bad for him at that point. He was very clearly broke. Well, let me restate that. I would have felt bad for him had he not expected me to pay and then ordered a $25 cut of beef when I ordered a $10 item. Anyways, I guess the moral of this story: get to know people before you go on a date, and try your best not to be a meal ticket for someone who doesn't know how to invest their money. And yes, I know Bitcoin is doing great nowadays, but investing when he did was stupid. And I can't imagine it worked out well for him back then. And no, there was no second date. This happened back when I was single, obviously, and working a night shift at a certain large chain restaurant that we're going to go ahead and call the Ringing Burrito. Anyways, the night that this all started was incredibly slow. I had done all the closing tasks, and we were pretty much just sitting around and waiting for someone to come in. I was standing in the register area for the drive-thru and swiping through Tinder. when I came across the profile of a girl that I actually thought was pretty cute. I was looking over her bio and reading about her. She was a year older than me, started her bio with a stupid joke, and it said that her favorite animals were koala bears. I remember thinking that was kind of strange, so when we matched and started talking, I literally started off with, "Why koalas?" She responded with a laughing emoji and said that they were cute and also kind of dumb, like her. The fact that she jumped in with self-deprecating humor was perfect for me, and I thought it was hilarious. We chatted for a while on the app and just kind of made small talk. She asked what I did for a living, and I told her that I was attending classes during the day and working at the Ringing Burrito during the evenings. Honestly, there were so many around town that I wasn't overly concerned with just saying that as a general place. After a while, she said that she needed to do some stuff, but asked if we could get together after my shift. I was pretty excited at first, but then realized I'd been working in the back of a Ringing Burrito for the last few hours, and I had classes in the morning. I told her that we could meet up on Friday night if she was available, as I actually had it off. And she seemed to agree, which was great. A couple hours later, near the end of my shift, we get a car in the drive-thru and I do my normal line. "Welcome to the Ringing Burrito. How may I help you?" "Yeah, hi. I'm looking for a Michael," which was my name. I was incredibly confused. I had no idea why someone would be coming through the drive-thru and looking for me. I just said, "Okay, I'm actually Michael. Can I help you?" I hear the person on the other end say something like, "Oh, finally," and then saw the car pull up. To my surprise, the woman in the car was the girl that I had matched with a couple hours prior. I just kind of smiled at her, incredibly confused and unsure of how to handle this situation. "Oh, hi. How are you?" was all that I was able to muster as I stared at her with an awkward smile. "I'm good now. This is the 5th Ringing Burrito I've been to looking for you." She stared at me when she said this with what I can only say was the most terrifying smile I have ever seen. It was legitimately the smile of a crazy person that had just found exactly what they were looking for. "So, do you want to go get drinks now?" I was beyond confused. I was still at work. I was still working, and obviously so. This woman had been hunting different Ringing Burritos looking for me. I just kind of stared at her and then stared down at my uniform, kind of saying, "You do see where I am and how this situation looks with my eyes." She just kept her terrifying stare and smile pointed directly at me. After a few moments of this horrifying awkwardness, my manager tapped me on the shoulder and basically motioned for me to move. So I did. He stepped forward and asked how he could help her. She said that she was looking for me and all that she had been through to find me on that evening. He basically told her to order something or leave. And after a few minutes of her screaming at him, she left. After that happened, he told me that he could see how scared I was from across the restaurant and felt like he may have needed to step in. I thanked him and told him that she was crazy. He agreed. After work, I checked Tinder to see if she had messaged me at all, and nope. She had blocked me though, so I guess that she got the hint. This is probably the only really weird thing that I ever got out of Tinder, thankfully. And after this night, I never heard from her again. So that was a collection of 3 horror stories involved in dating. 2 ones that were actually pretty creepy, and one that was more so like a good lesson in who you should get with whenever you go dating, and don't go for those. Anyway, you get the point. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this collection, just in time for Valentine's Day, of course. That was the intent, that was the point, so hopefully it was good for you. All that said, if you did enjoy it, please do consider hitting that subscribe button and the bell icon next to it. There's plenty more of all this stuff coming, as you know. And you can also support the channel by following me on any of my social media platforms, or doing that thing where you really support the channel through Patreon or channel memberships. Both of them get early access to all of my videos. Did you know that? Patreon in audio format, membership in video format, due to limitations of the technology of both, but they get access. So, early access at that. So, yeah. Hopefully you all have a wonderful day. Hopefully you have a great weekend, and hopefully you guys will be back on the next video, which is tomorrow. You know how it goes with me, so. Until then, my friends, my good friends, my lovely people. Also, I love your hair, by the way, today. It looks great. Yeah, but until then, I'll talk to you later, and, you know, sleep well.